Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is for entertainment purpose only. This is the tragic case of the Idaho Moscow students' murders. Bryan Christopher Kohberger is accused of killing these 4 students. This is Xana Conodle and her sister Jasmine Conodle. Xana Conodle was one of the victims. So was Ethan Chippen, Kaylee Congalvis, and Maddie Mogerson. This happened on the 11th of November, 2022. Law enforcement were called at 11:58 in the morning. The police of Idaho Moscow were informed that somebody was unconscious. The medical team came. When the police entered the scene, they saw that it was a horrific, bloody murder. Condolence to the family. May they rest in peace and may justice be served. This is Xana Conodle, one of the victims. Xana had a birthday a couple of days ago. May she rest in peace. These 2 sisters' mother was suffering to addictions. The reason I mention her is because she was a client of Bryan Kohberger, his lawyer, Anne. So Anne dropped the case of Xana Conodle and Jasmine Conodle's mother because she wanted to defend Bryan Kohberger. That has become an infamous case. On the 28th of May, the Post, New York Post, and the Independent UK put out an article that is extremely important. They say allegedly this is the way that Bryan Christopher Kohberger got into the victim's house. I always found it very strange that Xana Conodle was the last person to order Uber Eats or these takeaway apps. May God rest his soul. She must have died around 4:12 at night, because that's when her TikTok stopped working. This is really sad and tragic. This is her sister Jasmine Conodle. I always believed that Jasmine interested me kind of, because I noticed the connection to Jasmine and Bryan Kohberger was that they both went to the same college, Washington Pullman. Washington Pullman isn't bigger than Idaho Moscow. So I used to always wonder for months and months, could they have come? Did they run to each other? Did Jasmine on the right cross path with Bryan Christopher Kohberger? Was he manipulating her? And interestingly enough, I came across this article from the New York Post on the 20th of May. I went and searched further, and I found a similar article on the same date by the Independent UK. So this is actually something a FBI profiler was talking about, and you'll be shocked how Bryan Kohberger actually got to the victim's house. How he got his connections true. He was manipulating this poor girl, I believe. Listen to this article.
New York Post. News University of Idaho murders. Accused killer Bryan Kohberger allegedly broke into a female colleague's home months before the Idaho murders. Report by John Levine. May 20, 2023, 3 p.m. Updated. Accused Idaho killer Bryan appeared in court January 2023. Bryan Kohberger, who has been accused of brutally murdering 4 University of Idaho students, allegedly broke into an apartment of female colleagues and moved items around as part of elaborate ploys to manipulate her. According to NBC's Deadline, the 28-year-old Kohberger befriended the COED at Washington State University just months before the brutal November murders of Madison Morgan, Kaylee Calvis, Zana Conodin, and Ethan Chippen. The outlet reported more on Bryan Kohberger. Secrets of citizen slaughts, how wave of real crime fanatics are causing chaos. Plan to demolish house where 4 University of Idaho students were slain promotes objections. Bryan Kohberger attorney spares with Idaho prosecutions over evidence, not fishing expertise. Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger arrested in 2014. Records. Kohberger broke into a woman's apartment and joylisted things around, but didn't take anything. The scheme worked, and the unnamed woman asked to install a video surveillance system, which authorities now believe he could have accused remotely since he knew her Wi-Fi password. Deadline said, I would expect that he orchestrated the whole thing. He was not looking at her as a potential victim necessarily. Ex-FBI profiler Greg Kohberger told the network but he could orchestrate it so that she would come to him and that he would be able to help her. It is another level of power and dominance and control over another person. Bryan Kohberger has been accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students in November 2022. Kohberger's alleged victims were Madison Morgan, Kylie Coggins, Zana Conodin, Ethan Chippen. Ex-FBI profiler Greg Kohberger said was motivated by power and control. The hero image that he can portray, you got this problem, I'm here to solve the problem for you and to make it better for you. What do you think? The NBC special also claimed that Kohberger purchased a K-bar knife and a shed before moving to Washington and enrolling at university. Kohberger was indicted for the murders by a grand jury this week, paving the way for the trial. He is expected to enter a plea next week. Filed under Bryan Kohberger. Deadline, University of Idaho murders on the 5th of 2023.
So what exactly happened between Kohberger, what relationship was there actually between Kohberger and the student in Washington Pullman? Because he manipulated the student and he did a video, what's it called, security surveillance or something, internet surveillance, or so he could have got a password, and that's how he stalked the students in the Idaho Moscow. He hacked her. And that I can really believe, because that student clearly has to be Xana Konodal's sister Jasmine Konodal. Because there are two sisters. One goes to the same college as Bryan Kohberger, and the other one is the victim, one of the victims in the Idaho Moscow. So did Bryan Kohberger install internet and Wi-Fi for Jasmine Konodal? Oh my God, it's sad. They haven't said who it was, but most likely that would make sense. Because let's not forget, it was Xana Konodal that ordered Jack in the Box, was it? And she ordered Jack in the Box from Washington Pullman, where her sister lives and goes to college, and where Bryan Kohberger goes to college. So he was tracking definitely everyone's movements in the house that night. He knew, and he came right after the delivery, the pizza delivery guy. That makes complete sense. It is really heartbreaking that this man not only killed the 4 students, but he was manipulating friends and sisters and families, allegedly. I leave this in my community section, both the articles. One is from the New York Post on the 20th of May 2023, and the other is from the Independent UK around the same timing. So he hacked someone's password, Wi-Fi password, and that would make sense how he had track of all the 4 victims. Poor Xana Konodal. She ordered a pizza. But for me, it still does not make sense that he did the crime by himself. I'm not saying physically. I'm saying that how come he did not hurt or kill Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, especially Dylan, because Dylan saw him. No killer would want you to see him and then they leave you to live and tell so that you can be the main witness arresting them. Bushy eyebrows could be anyone. Why did it take 8 hours for Dylan to call? Not the police. She called her other friends. And then the other friends came to the house and they called from the remaining witness's house. The surviving witness's house. It was even said that Hunter Johnson took a pulse and checked to see if his friend Eaton Chippen was still alive. We don't know if it could have been too late. Yes, it could have been too late for the students, for any survivors. How come nobody called the police much earlier? Because let's not forget, there are 4 deceased bodies. The smell would have bothered the 2 remaining surviving victims. Poor Hunter on the right. He had to come and witness his triplet passed away, and his friend Zana. Many students knew exactly what happened before the police arrived. So my question is, did any of the other students have any motives? This is Zana Konodal on the left, one of the victims, her father, and her sister Jasmine Konodal, her older sister. I believe it was a visit the father and Zana Konodal made to visit Jasmine Konodal, Zana's sister. The father and his daughter went to visit Jasmine because you can see it's a family weekend in Pullman, Washington. That is where Bryan Kohberger used to study, and Jasmine, the girl with the long brown hair. Zana's the one with the plaited hair. So according to the articles by the New York Post and by the Independent Post, was that on the 20th of May? I'll put in the article in the Community Post. It seems like some young woman in Pullman, Washington, a student, Bryan Kohberger, manipulated and took advantage of a Wi-Fi code. And that's how he was stalking the 4 victims that he killed. So I personally believe it has to be Jasmine, even the opinions, because I really found it a bit strange. From the very beginning they arrested Bryan Kohberger. I remembered Washington Pullman is where Zana Konodal's sister Jasmine Konodal studies. That's sad. We've heard early on in the case that Bryan Kohberger sent a DM to Maddie Morgan. Maddie Morgan worked at the Mad Greek together. She works together with Zana Konodal. So I believe Bryan Kohberger was stalking those 2 victims through Jasmine Konodal and through Mad Creek. If Bryan Kohberger was allegedly, if the woman that he was manipulating, her Wi-Fi password and all that, if that woman is Zana Konodal's sister, Jasmine Konodal, it would definitely make sense. Because Zana Konodal ordered Jack in the Box from Washington Pullman right before the murders took place. I guess in life we have to be extremely careful of who we left in our premises, around our houses, around our children, around our students, around our workplaces, because it's so easy for people just to stalk, harass you, and some of them are willing to go the whole way. How sad. Rest in peace. My question still remains. Dylan Mortensen, if you saw the killer steps away from you and you said he had bushy eyebrows and he let you survive, which is already a question mark for me. Why didn't you call the police? Why did it take 8 hours? Your life and your friend Bethany Funk, his life would have been in danger, so why didn't you call the police immediately? What was wrong in this case? Weren't you scared of your life? Or was there evidence? Was there drugs at home that you had to hide? Was there something else going allegedly at home for the police not to have been called straight away? Just like the Nicola Bully case. When she was reported missing, the primary school was called first, before the police. So when somebody doesn't call the police immediately, it's very questionable. Because 8 hours is enough to plant evidence or to delete, eliminate evidence. How come there wasn't a louder commotion? Those CCTV footages look fake, with all the noises going in the background, and they weren't released by the police. Kaylee Congalvis, his friend, said clearly when she was crying, you can see the clip that I made 2 days ago. She said clearly that I found out about the tragedy at 10 a.m. So why did the police find out at 11:58 a.m.? Doesn't make sense. What happened in that house? It does make sense if Bryan Kohberger was talking the victims through Jasmine Conodle, that is one of the victims, Xana Conodle's sister. She was innocent. She has nothing to do with it if it's so. But it would make more sense there. But why did he leave Dylan alive? That doesn't make sense. Why would somebody leave the main victim who saw you face to face? I can understand if he let Bethany Funk, who lived downstairs, live. But Bethany was hearing enough noise. Why didn't she fear for her life and call the police? Dogs were clearly barking, so something is not right. You saw the blood dripping from the downstairs underneath that window. Do you remember? So why did they let all these tragic things happen and let the people bleed out of blood before calling law enforcement? What was Dylan and Bethany on? I don't mean like what addictions were they on, but what were they on? Where was this leading to? Just questions. But I'm happy that I found that article. I put it in the community, in my community page.